Hey guys, and welcome to the January 2016 edition of Casual MTG here on the Needs Home Magic channel. Happy New Year to everybody. This is a series on my channel where I talk about, a sort of goofy casual deck that I have that's usually built on a pretty low budget. This one's a little higher than usual, and I'll get into that when I get there. But, they're mostly kitchen table decks. I play them against other casual decks. They're not really intended to be competitive with Tier 1, but they're decks that are a lot of fun to play. Before I get into talking about the deck, I just want to remind you guys that my videos are being posted on paperchampion.net. If you're watching my videos there, then I'm very happy that you are. And if you haven't visited paperchampion.net yet, you should check it out for more great Magic the Gathering content. Anyway, this month we have a deck that is built around, mostly anyway, See the Unwritten, which is a cool mythic rare that was printed in Cons of Tarkir that hasn't really seen any play anywhere. And it's a card I hadn't had a chance to play with, so I thought building a deck around it would be fun. And not only that, I decided I'd throw a bunch of mythic rares into this deck that haven't really, don't see a lot of play, and because of that, they're kind of cheap, but they're all really fun, weird cards. And it's easy to do that with See the Unwritten because, as you can see, it's just good if you're playing a deck with lots of big, scary creatures in it, and, that's what you want to do. So the goal of this deck is to try to cheat big creatures into play and win that way by using See the Unwritten. It has, lands, as most decks do. The nice thing about playing Temur is that both Shivan Reef and Yavimaya Coast are legal in Standard, and then you have Frontier Bivouac. So the mana base is actually pretty consistent. But we also have a bunch of 2-drops here that aren't the big creatures you're looking for. But I have Frostwalker in the deck, both for getting in early damage and also as a way for See the Unwritten to be ferocious. Obviously, See the Unwritten is best if it's ferocious, so I have a few lower curve creatures that have 4 power or more. Then I also have ways to ramp more quickly into See the Unwritten or into the big bombs that the deck has in it anyway, like 3 Leaf Gilders and 4 Rattleclaw Mystics. We also have Savage Knuckleblade, who's another lower curve monster in the deck who can sometimes just win the game on his own, but he also makes See the Unwritten better because he activates the ferocious ability. I have 4 Temur Charms in the deck. It's just a super flexible card. It can be our removal spell, it can be a counter spell, or it can make it so we can swing for an Alpha Strike. So that's pretty great. And the last of the creatures I have that aren't really See the Unwritten targets, but that are in the deck, are the 2 Shaman of the Great Hunts that I have here. They're very good with Ferocious, which this deck has a theme of, and it's just a pretty good card in general that makes all my creatures bigger every time they deal damage. And he can help me draw a bunch of cards if I need to, or even just one, if he's the only one in play. But he also sometimes will be a good See the Unwritten target because he has haste, and that damage can be lethal. So basically the rest of this curve over here, other than See the Unwritten obviously, are the kind of targets we want to be hitting with our See the Unwritten ideally. And the thing with See the Unwritten that's kind of nice is you can sort of toolbox it, it's kind of like a more interesting, let's say, collected company. It's not instant, but it does get you 2 creatures a lot of the time, and you can kind of decide what you want based on the board state. So if you want removal, you can pull out Icefall Regent. If you see it in your top 8, it can tap down one of their creatures, also making it so your guys in play may be able to swing for lethal. If you need Trample to make your damage more effective, or if you want to make sure your creatures aren't countered, and various things like that. You can also have Surak, who's also nice to just flash in with the deck in general. If you need a card back from the graveyard, there's Green Warden of Murasa, who incidentally is very good with See the Unwritten because you can cast See the Unwritten, hit Green Warden of Murasa, get back See the Unwritten, cast See the Unwritten on your next turn. So that's a pretty nice little combo in the deck. He is one of the few creatures in the deck that's not just sort of a singleton card. He's also a mythic that doesn't see much play, as is Surak and Shaman of the Great Hunt. There's many mythics in this deck. It's a reject mythics deck, basically. But yeah, Green Warden we have 3 of because he's so good with See the Unwritten, and he's a big beater himself. There's also 1 Woodland Bellower, who is nice because he's not only does he have a big body, but you can grab a Savage Knuckleblade out of the deck, which is usually what you're going to want to hit with that. So you get sometimes 3 creatures with See the Unwritten if you hit that. There's also Foe Razor Regent, who is a removal spell, who's also just a big, scary flyer. Gaia's Revenge, who's a creature with haste, who also can't be countered, which may or may not be relevant. It's only relevant if you're hard casting it. And it has protection from non-green things that target it. So it can't be removed by a lot of things, and it can help you hit lethal. Omnath, is just a big problematic creature, also a mythic, incidentally, as is Woodland Bellower. A big problematic creature that you can hit with See the Unwritten if you're just trying to go for the win. Things quickly get out of hand if your opponent can't deal with Omnath. And you get value either way because he does damage to the opponent. And then Void Winnower is another mythic in the deck that's just sort of there to help close out games. You can grab it sort of when you're looking for a certain thing. Oh, I left out Clever Impersonator, who's in the lower curve, but is also more of a See the Unwritten target because you can get it late. You can use it, make another copy of Woodland Bellower, a Foe Razor Regent, or Icefall Regent, or Void Winnower, I guess, if you want, or Green Warden, or one of my opponent's permanents as well. So it's a good card to see when you're top 8 if you already have like a really good creature in play or if your opponent does. So that's the deck. It basically, like I said, sort of has 28 creatures in it. So See the Unwritten's going to hit at least 2 creatures a lot. And it has, a decent number of creatures in the low curve who make sure Ferocious is a thing so that See the Unwritten can have Ferocious. We'll look at the sideboard as well. Has 3 Dispels in it because what you don't want to be happening is to have your See the Unwritten countered. So if you're playing an opponent with a lot of counter spells, you can bring in Dispel. Rending Volley, which is just really efficient removal. Sometimes Temur Charm is flexible, but it's not efficient, and Rending Volley is. Roast, same thing. Naturalize to deal with artifacts and enchantments, of course. Profaner of the Dead is good against token decks. It's another good sort of toolbox target for the See the Unwritten. And the deck one of its weaknesses is against flyers. It only has 1 flyer in it in Foe Razor Regent. I guess it also has Icefall Regent, but it has Whirler Rogue in the sideboard as another sort of card you can toolbox. If that's what you need and you want to make one of your guys unblockable, or if you really need flyers to win the game, you can hit your Whirler Rogue. But I have it in the sideboard because I don't think there's like really a whole lot of room for it in the main deck. Against some opponents, you may want it. Harbinger of the Hunt is also good against token decks. And Conclave Naturalist is a good sort of toolbox card to have against decks with lots of artifacts and enchantments. So that's the deck. I will show you how much it costs. I usually try to keep this under 15 tickets, but there were so many like random mythics I wanted to play with in Standard that I've never had the chance to play with, who actually work well anyway with See the Unwritten, that the deck ended up being a little more expensive than usual. It's about 22 tickets. I'm not actually looking at my cart though. And See the Unwritten is a mythic that costs $1.26, so it makes up a pretty good chunk of the budget, as does Rattleclaw Mystic, who's actually not a mythic. And Green Warden of Marasa is not super cheap either, but not that expensive. I don't know why I have that there. I think that was in the deck at one point, but it's not, so it's actually a little cheaper. $21.41. Pia and Kiran Nalar not in the deck. Although, they're not a bad card if you're looking for, if you don't have some of these cards, Pia and Kiran Nalar is a pretty sweet one. So that's the deck. The mana base, of course, costs a bit too. Yavimaya Coast is, over $3, and Shivan Reef is $4.20. So, that's a big chunk of where the deck's value is coming from. Not actually the mythics, but the mythics don't help. But, it's a pretty fun, goofy deck. I'm looking forward to recording some games for you guys to watch to see what kind of weird stuff this deck does. But yeah, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And this video should be in a playlist, and if it is, I hope you'll watch me play a few matches with this deck.